Hello and welcome to another episode of Around the Valley. As always, I'm Marsha Versarian, and I'm excited to bring you this. We're getting, dare I say, more and more excited. I don't know if that's possible, but we're through the roof with everything that's going on here in the Valley. All our teams are busting their butts, and we've got nothing to complain about on our end. But without any further ado, I'm always joined by Kenny Hodges. Kaylee Harden's back. And we're just going to jump into this thing. Kenny, how you doing?
I am doing spectacular. It has been another great week of action in and around the Valley. We've got our Valley Giant, who's looking more and more like they're going to run the table the rest of the way. We got some good storylines coming out of the East Valley. And the vision got a little clearer in the Valley Mission, but there's some questions about who really is the second best team in that league after what we've seen so far in this week 7 slate. So let's start in the West Valley. Let's run down the scores from last week. From last week's action, we had a real slugfest, a real barn burner. As I kind of told you that this could be an interesting game that I wrote in the gems. El Camino pulls out a 7-6 victory over Granada Hills. Defense really stood tall there in a real slugfest. El Camino picks up the win. Over at Tav, Chatsworth bounces back and they pick up a good road win against Tav 24-20. And in a game we had our eyes on, as it would tell us a lot about what the West Valley the rest of the way would look like. Birmingham, and they're all blacks. They're all black uniforms. They went and they handled business against Cleveland 34-7 at home. So taking a look at the West Valley standings, Birmingham sits alone at the top at 3-0, 3-4 overall. El Camino sits in second place in the West Valley, 2-1, 3-5 overall. Cleveland is in third at 2-1, 4-4 overall. Granada Hills is at 1-2, 2-6 overall. Chatsworth at 1-2, 4-4 overall, and Taft is in the basement at 0-3 and 2-6 overall. So we saw the action that happened in the West Valley. Obviously, the game we were all looking at it was a point of conversation last year. We talked last week. We talked about what it would mean in terms of what the rest of the West Valley season looks like, and just going into the playoffs, what happened in that Birmingham Cleveland game. And even though Cleveland, to be completely honest, put on a good effort, a valiant effort in that game. They really played tough, but Birmingham's defense is too stifling. Offensively, they just were able to move the ball when they needed to, and they came away with a pretty easy win at 34-7. So the question is, and we'll start with you, Kaylee, on this one. Is it the West Valley conversation is done? Yes, we can have some conversation about those teams in the open division that Birmingham's going to see when they get there. But at this point, with what they've done for how long they've been doing it, is it state championship or bust for this team? Is it good enough for them to just win the West Valley in the city? Is the real marker for how good this team now is if they can win a state championship? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that at this point they've gone 4 years in a row where they've gotten the city title, and so I think that, and they haven't lost a game within the West Valley League in quite a while. So I think at this point it's time to raise the bar a little bit, and you have to show that you're still evolving and still getting better. So I think that's absolutely the case, is that they need to bring home a state title, or up the ante a little bit.
Yeah. What do you say, Archibald? Is it state title or bust for this team?
My initial reaction is without a doubt, right? They got that far last year. Couldn't seal the deal at the end. It was a hell of a matchup. But this is a team that, until, again, we say this all the time, until somebody beats them in the city, their aspirations are greater, right? We're getting another ring. Well, can you get a plaque, right? Can you get that city one, that state one to go with it? Yeah, I'd have to say, as much as I'm trying to talk myself out of it, it's probably state title or bust at this point.
And it's a testament to what that program has done, right? Not to sit on this point too long, but like Birmingham has been a team that is just, they've been so dominant for so long that the expectation is just beyond the city now. Like, obviously this year will be anything but a given because there are some really good teams on that end of the city. But assuming they're going to do the same thing that we've seen them do in past years, yeah, it's time for them to go ahead and bring home that state title. I mean, that's what puts the icing on the cake on what has been a phenomenal run for this team for years, is for them to kind of go ahead and finish that deal completely. So I'm right there with you guys. Like I said, the West Valley, for the most part, now that they've posted wins against the two teams that are in the standings behind them, it's pretty safe to say Birmingham's probably going to go ahead and win this league. And then we'll see what they do in the postseason. So let's move on into the Valley Mission. Starting with the scores from this past week, we had 3 games that were on the slate. Van Nuys handles business against Canoga Park. Canoga Park team, keep your eyes on them in the future. They've got some talent they're starting to build, but it's still a work in progress. And Van Nuys did what we expected them to do. They hung 49 on them. They won 49-20. San Fernando bounces back from a tough couple of weeks, and they took it out on Panorama, 41-14 final there in San Fernando. And in one of our games of the week that we were really sort of kind of paying attention to, Sylmar had all the momentum behind them. They had the momentum of win over San Fernando. They were unbeaten in league. They fought valiantly, but that Kennedy team is just too much to deal with. They got rolling in the second half, really put Sylmar away, and they won 56-28. So looking at the standings in the Valley Mission, Kennedy moves solely into first place at 4-0 in the league, 6-2 overall. Sylmar's in second place at 4-1, 5-4 overall. Van Nuys is 3-1 and 6-2 overall. Panorama at 2-2 and 3-5 overall. San Fernando, surprisingly, 2-3, 4-5 overall. And then Canoga Park and Reseda are both sitting at 0-4. So here's the question I want to ask you guys. So now we've kind of sort of got some of our questions answered in terms of what Sylmar is. They're a good team, but they just weren't quite on the level of Kennedy. And we assume at this point, from what we've seen from Kennedy, they're going to go ahead and they're probably going to win the Valley Mission going forward. But here's what's interesting to me as you look at the landscape of what the Valley Mission has sort of turned into. Now you're seeing Van Nuys putting up 40 some odd points a week. Sylmar, we can make the argument that maybe they got a little lucky last week in that win against San Fernando. San Fernando's had their struggles. They're up and down this year. They graduated a lot of senior leadership, and so it's sort of been kind of fitting in some younger pieces with that team. So maybe they're not as good this year as maybe they're going to be next year, right? You look at this league. Is it fair to say that Van Nuys is the second best team in this league going forward? I'll ask you first, Arjun. What do you think? Is Van Nuys the second best team in this league? And do they have a chance when they see Kennedy before the season is over? What do you think?
Ask me again after Friday. Sylmar and Van Nuys are going heads up on Friday. And that is going to be a big matchup. And to me, it's going to say a lot about both of these programs, because we know Sylmar has been playing really well this season. They've put some power. They were in that game for 3 quarters against Kennedy. So, and Van Nuys has had their moments. I mean, their 2 losses, they want back. They believe they should have won those games. So Van Nuys is a team that believes they should be 8-0 overall. It's going to be a hell of a game on Friday night, and that's where I stand. I'm not giving you a yes or a no, because Friday night's the game I want to see.
To be truthful, I'm really not as confident. I think it's been a good couple of games, but I'm not going to place my money on Van Nuys quite yet. Like Arshavir said, I am excited to see how this weekend pans out, but I think after we are surprised a little bit by some performances, it's easy to switch up and bandwagon, or maybe like want the good luck to keep flowing. But I'm a little hesitant to say so far that they're the second best.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I think it's maybe the hopeful optimistic in me. I want to be like, yeah, absolutely, this is the second best team. But truthfully told, like Arshavir, like you were saying, like they've got a stiff test compared to what they've sort of seen in the Valley Mission so far in terms of like what Sylmar brings to the table. Like Sylmar is absolutely a team that's going to test the limits of what Van Nuys can handle defensively and kind of muck things up for them offensively. Like it won't be so easy to be so free flowing and throwing the ball all over the place against their Sylmar defense the way it's been against some of the lower tier teams that are in the Valley Mission. So maybe there's still a question to be answered there, but I almost want to say yes and believe it just because I want that little added drama when we get to the end of the season. But yeah, it might be a wait and see, but you know what? For the sake of my hope and belief in what we're going to get the last couple of weeks, I'll go ahead and say it. Yeah, this offense is for real. Them putting up 40 points on very good teams, on a couple of teams with really good defenses this year, I think is at least showing you a benchmark that this program is headed in the right direction. So we'll see where it goes
before we roll out. And this is, more in support of this Van Nuys program. Ken Osorio has them rolling right now. But you look at like opponents, right? Like I said, they wanted 2 games back. One of them is that Panorama game. They lost by 7. And Sylmar beat Panorama rather handily. But you go to San Fernando, and this is the team that we believe was going to be number 2 in the league coming in. And they both beat San Fernando literally at the end. Sylmar went down to the clock. There was that final possession, had the field goal. Van Nuys beat him in overtime, which is why I'm telling you guys, talk to me after Friday. This is going to be a hell of a game. I'm telling everybody, this is a game I'm dying to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. It should be fun. We'll dive a little bit into maybe they come up again when we look ahead at the end. But let's move on to the East Valley. Run down the scores from last week. Chavez handles business at home against Monroe. They win that game 22-6. Arleta and Poly, the battle for the Victory Cup. Arleta shows up in their all reds and leaves the field painted red as they beat up Poly 34-0. Over at Grant, we talked about could Verdugo sort of stay the course and handle business in a tough environment against a tough team. It was a back and forth affair, and in the end, they came out on top 27-24. And last but not least, North Hollywood does what we have known North Hollywood to do, and they shut out Fulton at home 21-0. So, updating the standings in the East Valley. North Hollywood sits at the top at 5-0. They remain the only unbeaten team in the city section at 8-0 overall. Arleta's 4-1. They've rebounded since that opener loss to North Hollywood. They've won 4 straight. They're 6-2 overall. Verdugo Hills right there, also 4-1, 6-2 overall. Chavez follows them at 3-2, 4-3 overall. Grant and Poly are both at 2-3 in the league. And Fulton and Monroe are 0-5, searching for their first wins in the Valley Mission. Well, we do know one of them will finish with the win because they still have each other to play, but that is the standing. So, again, let's revisit the conversation we had last week. We had conversations. I asked you guys, is Verdugo going to be unbeaten when they get to when they see North Hollywood? All that aside, right? Let's just talk about this Verdugo Hills team in itself. We've had the conversations about North Hollywood. We know they are who we thought they were, or they've sort of stamped who they are after a hot start, and they've kind of trampled through everybody in the East Valley they've seen so far. I mean, they're outscoring their opponent through 5 games, 191-35. They've been as dominant can be. We know what Arleta is. Yes, they lost to North Hollywood, but they've sort of reestablished that they are. But let's talk about Verdugo Hills a bit, because at the end of the day, when we're talking about a team with a chance to win a a league championship. We know they're going to have to go through North Hollywood at this point. That's coming. But have you seen enough? What we saw in that Grant game, did that give you more confidence or less confidence that they would be able to beat North Hollywood when they see them coming up?
I wouldn't say that it gave me any more confidence that they could beat North Hollywood. I think it was, it was a great performance, and I think that they definitely showed that they're more dominant than just sitting in like a casual sitting in third place. But then again, that game against Grant, like we've seen Grant over and over again, and they're underwhelming. It was a great game for, in terms of displaying how dominant they are capable of being. Whether or not that is to hold true against North Hollywood remains to be seen, and I don't think we will see it.
Okay, Ashria, so I'll ask you, do you have more or less confidence in this team? And I'll throw an extra caveat in there for you. Do you have more or less confidence in this team? But also, what is your nervous level for them with this game against Chavez this week, knowing they got North Hollywood in 2 weeks? Is this a trap game that they're going to get caught flat against an annoying Chavez team that just has a tendency? You see Chavez from week to week. They stay in games. Like they just don't really get blown out. Like they find a way to make you have to play, right? Is this a pitfall game that they can get caught here, or is this team now in a position where they understand what the mission is, and that their mission is to get to November 1st?
From what I saw in person on Friday, I don't believe they fall to the Chavez trap. And here's why. When Verdugo Hill struggles running the ball, they still run their motion actions, and they can hit you with a short pass that goes big. Their sophomore quarterback has a cannon that is actually pretty accurate, so he's that weapon. And if the pass is taken away like it was, like Grant took away the pass like nobody's business on Friday night. It was the ground, and it was the short pass. Little bubble screens, quick hitches to the halfback, and the way this team was blocking, So if you take one, you got to deal with the other. It's a pick your poison kind of with Verdugo Hills this season. And so I don't believe they fall victim to that Chavez trap. That's one, right? And we had part two. Part two, as much as Matt Nikita has this defense humming as a D coordinator, they're prone to give up big plays. And let me pull this out really quick. There were 6 plays, if my math is right. Got to look a little closer. They had at least 6 plays, probably, of 20 or more yards given up. Now, Verdugo Hills has played bend but don't break defense most of the season. When you get to North Hollywood, you can't bend like that, because they're going to make you pay.
That's true, and to me, even more so than that. Yes, the defense has to step up. These last 2 weeks, the defense is going to have to sort of step up and hold the fort. But I think what's even more important, when you kind of been paying attention, if you watch this Verdugo Hills team offensively, they have definitely got some home run hitters. So the thing is like North Hollywood is going to sort of put you in a box a bit, but do you have the talent to be able to break a couple, like we saw them doing that Grant game with Aiden Mejia? Takes a little end around handoff and breaks the tackle, gets the edge, and he's out of there, right? So they do have some home run hitters, and you're going to need that in order to beat a team like North Hollywood, because that's the thing. Like some of these teams they go up against, if you don't have the explosive play, if you don't have the splash play, they're only going to give you but so much. So I think that's also an important element. This Verdugo Hills team, more than outside of Grant, actually has some home run hitters on that offensive side of the ball that could be a difference maker. That could be something that North Hollywood hasn't seen in the East Valley so far.
One last thing. I know I'm doing this to you a lot today. But the one last thing is these are the first two D lines in this league, North Hollywood and Verdugo Hills, that I have seen actually been able to outmuscle and dictate play. So if Verdugo Hills' D line is able to do what they did against Grant, against North Hollywood in 2 weeks, then that could really change that dynamic because they were living in that Lancers backfield for most of the night.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what Verdugo Hills does this week, and if they can handle business against Chavez. Spoiler alert, that's probably the game of the week in week 10 because it'll all be on the line. So before we look ahead to next week, just to show some love to our teams that are in the southern section in our backyard here in the Valley, I'll run down a couple of the notable scores from this past week. Sierra Canyon has got it absolutely rolling right now. They beat up Bishop Amat 38-0 at home. Chaminade, even though it's been a tough season, a good win for them. They go on the road to Loyola. They win 44-10. Notre Dame has a big win at home against Sarah, 34-18. Alamany has a tough loss on the road at St. Paul, 31-2. St. Jen's, look out for the St. Jen's, the Valiants. They've got putting together a pretty good season, looking to make some noise in the postseason. They beat up St. Bernard on the road, 46-13. Burbank Handle has a big win at home against Glendale, 64-0. And probably the game of the week on the southern section side, at least on our end, Burroughs with a tough win over CV, 37-35 on the road. Big win for them. And Calabasas comes up short on the road at Santa Barbara, 28-21. So now let's look ahead. Before we get out of here, let's look ahead to the slate this weekend. We got some games on Thursday. We got some games on Friday as well. We got that big one on Thursday night with Sylmar and Van Nuys. We've also got Kennedy on the road at Panorama. Even though we expect Kennedy to win, Panorama is a house of horrors a bit for Kennedy the past couple of years. So we expect there to be some fun things that go on there in that game. Looking ahead to what we've got on Friday in our end, we've got Fulton Poly, we've got Chavez and Verdugo Hills, another one that's a trap game. We got an interesting one between Granada Hills and Chatsworth as well. That's a big one for Granada Hills in terms of what it means for the postseason. They need to put a couple of wins together to kind of help themselves out there. One that now has real implication behind it with Elko and Cleveland also on Friday night. Grant and Arleta is an interesting matchup. So Birmingham and Taft. So we have some good games on the schedule. If I had to tie you guys down to one, can't miss, got to be in the building for. Kaylee, I'll give you the floor first. What's the game on the schedule this week that you feel like is must see, you must be at, you got to watch?
So I will say, I do really want to see, because it's been a couple weeks, I do want to see in front of my eyes. I want to see how much more dominant from the non-league play that Birmingham has become in league play. Because from being on both of those sidelines, I'm already knowing that, they're not as organized as they were last season as far as what I've seen so far, but they have been very dominant in the league. Going up against a team like Taft, I think we're already able to predict the outcome. So for me, that's not like my one that you must see because we already know probably what's going to happen. However, I am excited. I would be interested to see, how they've tightened those reins a little bit and manage their organization. As far as implications within the league and going into the postseason is concerned, I would say that I'm most excited to see that Cleveland Elko game. And, not to be biased, I know I always favor the teams in the West Valley a little bit more, but I think that the Elko is just always up against the biggest barriers, and still somehow is always able to pull out these great performances, given the tools that they have. So I think that after the loss from Birmingham, it would be interesting to see how Cleveland recovers that season record going into the postseason. And I would be interested to see how much of a disturbance Elko is able to give Cleveland when they're already down.
Yeah, I'm right with you there. What do you got, Arshavir? What's piqued your interest for this week?
As much as there's multiple ones that I'm really interested in. There's the two, and thankfully they're on Thursday and Friday. Silmar Van Nuys. I'm telling you, you guys, if you're not gonna be at Crypto.com Arena on Thursday night for the home opener, then get your butts to Silmar Van Nuys. That's the game to be at. And then Friday night is Elko Cleveland. This is a game that's going to really solidify them in terms of their seeding. The winner is basically number 2 in the West Valley. And both of these teams have put together really good seasons. And they've really kind of rebounded after what they lost from last season. Like we said, Cleveland is looking like a more well-rounded program, and El Camino just keeps putting things together regardless of whatever's thrown in their way. So that is the Friday night game to watch.
Yeah, I agree. That Silmar Van Nuys, that goes without saying with the implications, what it sort of means, what it means for Van Nuys, because at the end of the day, when you look at the rankings, I still don't think that they're getting the sort of respect that their win total would suggest. So a win over Silmar definitely kind of helps bump them into a position that really sort of helps them, because I'm assuming they probably still end up in D3, but they might jump into D2. Who knows? But a win over Silmar absolutely helps that case. I'm right with you guys with Elko and Cleveland. Cleveland, we know what they are. Throw that game out last week. Matter of fact, don't even throw that game out last week, because we talk about Birmingham and the fact that when you looked at what Birmingham did the last couple of weeks, it was a lot more of a struggle. Cleveland, actually, their defense got off the field quite a few times. It was just, but Birmingham, it's always such an uphill struggle that you almost have to look at that game in perspective of what they did versus what you saw teams do against Birmingham the last couple of weeks. So we know that team, that's not a team with any give up in it. They're going to be ready to fight. But this Elko team, when you look at how the season started, the conversations we were having 3 weeks ago to what this team did on Friday night, I think they found out some things about themselves that are going to help them finish out this season. They've got a real shot to get back to 5-5 after an 0-4 start with a win in this game this week. So that one should be a barn burner. But the one that I'll also throw in there that I just think is something about Grant and Grant League games, that it tends to be a little bit of a soap opera, some drama, and styles make fights. So when you look at this Grant Arleta game, at first glance, on paper, you say Arleta probably should win this. But if there's one Achilles heel, if there's one bugaboo about this Arleta team, is you can't throw the ball over the top on them a little bit. And if there's anything that a Sicily offense wants to do, is wants to take that young quarterback with that big arm, and he wants to go over the top on your defense and spread you out. So there is a chance that we could be over next week talking about how this game was back and forth. We've seen Arleta have a couple of those games. We saw them have a game like that with Taft this year, where they had to come back late to pull it out because Taft was throwing the ball all over the place. So just pay attention to that Grant Arleta game, because that one could be some fireworks. That could be some drama there. So we'll leave it there for this week. We've got some interesting things as we're kind of chugging along towards the postseason on the football side. For Arshavir Sarian, for Kaylee Harden, and myself, Kenny Hodges, we hope you guys are paying attention. Please leave a comment, subscribe, keep being tuned into what we're doing. Valley Sports Telegram, we got a bunch of stuff. The amount of stuff, the amount of articles and the things we put out in the past week is just ridiculous. We've got it all for you guys there. Please go check out our website. Read the articles. Everything you need to know about these kids is there, because we got boots on the ground and we are out here. We are bringing it all to you. So until next time, this has been another episode of Around the Valley. Peace.